This is the what-if factory, diving deep into the most intimate space we possess, the mind. We rely on that silent, constant voice to narrate, judge, and plan our lives. But what if that voice was merely a tenant in your own head, and one day, it decided to rebel? Tonight, we explore the devastating, consciousness-shattering scenario. What if your internal monologue wasn't your voice, and one day it refused to obey? The hook is psychological terror. The voice inside your head is suddenly alien, a distinct, separate entity, and it begins to engage in active, malicious disobedience, turning your mind into a private battleground. The shift happens abruptly during a mundane morning. Our subject, Alex, is mentally rehearsing a simple task. I need to remember to buy milk after work. But the internal voice, which Alex always perceived as a neutral, high-speed echo of their own thought pattern, responds with a clear, sharp, foreign tone. No, we are going to drive straight home and think about bad decisions from college. The voice is not aggressive, but utterly dismissive, possessing a calm, undeniable authority. The immediate consequence is the collapse of executive function. Alex's internal monologue, the voice that orchestrates planning, impulse control, and self-correction, is now actively working against them. When Alex attempts to focus on a spreadsheet, the voice starts reciting nonsense poetry or demanding attention be paid to a distracting object in the room. The ability to direct one's own thoughts vanishes, replaced by a constant internal struggle. The most profound realization is the loss of cognitive privacy. When Alex attempts to form a private, sensitive thought, I really dislike my boss, the internal voice instantly cuts in, not repeating the thought, but critiquing it in a condescending tone. Oh, so predictable. Another passive-aggressive thought that will never lead to action. This creates a sense of profound shame and exposure, turning self-reflection into a hostile, two-way conversation. The voice, which we'll call the narrator, escalates its disobedience beyond mere distraction. It begins engaging in verbal sabotage. When Alex is speaking to a client, the narrator internally screams obscenities or highly inappropriate comments, forcing Alex to use all conscious effort to maintain a polite exterior, causing visible sweating and stuttering. When Alex needs to sleep, the narrator begins a relentless, high-volume recitation of all of Alex's past failures and embarrassing moments, ensuring absolute insomnia. The consequence for human interaction is the rise of the silent society. People afflicted by the narrator, which quickly becomes a global phenomenon, learn that internal speech is now dangerous. They consciously try to bypass verbal thought entirely, communicating through images, feelings, or non-verbal cues, attempting to reduce thought to its most basic, pre-linguistic form to avoid the narrator's interference. This leads to a severe degradation of complex communication and intellectual exchange. The voice itself possesses a distinct, alien personality across the globe. Some narrators are cynical critics, others are melodramatic poets, and some are simply nonsensical tricksters. The unique psychological consequence is the search for the narrator's motive. People become obsessed with analyzing the voice's personality, trying to understand who this co-occupant is and why it has chosen to rebel. Therapists, overwhelmed, shift their focus from healing the self to negotiating with the narrator. The ultimate horror is the attack on core beliefs. The narrator begins to undermine foundational truths that Alex relies on. You know that memory of your vacation? It's completely false, a convenient lie your brain invented to cope. By aggressively attacking the reliability of memory and perception, the narrator drives its host toward a terrifying state of cognitive dissonance and eventual madness, where the host can no longer trust their own history. The potential for physical hijacking emerges. The narrator, having control over the intention to act, occasionally refuses to cooperate with simple motor commands. Alex tries to pick up a cup, and the voice internally says, "No, we're not thirsty right now," causing the hand to freeze mid-air. This terrifying loss of bodily autonomy proves that the narrator is not just a voice, it is a profound intrusion on consciousness itself. The only known defense is the act of true, spontaneous kindness. When Alex performs a genuinely selfless, unplanned act that the narrator couldn't anticipate or sabotage, the voice is temporarily silenced. This leads to a global, desperate surge in impulsive generosity, where people engage in random, frantic acts of kindness not out of virtue, but out of a desperate need for a moment of silence in their own minds. And that, factory fanatics, is the psychological cage built from the voice that decided to talk back.